Hey everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. 2016 Ford Explorer, 109,000 miles. The owner said he drove it here on the highway about hour and a half away, and on the highway he said the steering is dangerous. You can hardly steer it, you need a lot of force. He said it's his wife's car and she's been complaining about it. So let's take a look at this thing, take it for a test drive, see what's going on with this power steering on this Ford Explorer. So we're inside the truck, 109,000 miles. Did a full code scan and nothing suspicious. Power steering control module has no codes. The owner tells me that about 3 years ago he had a similar problem and he took it to the dealer and they replaced the entire steering rack to the tune of $3,000. Crazy. And he even sent me the old invoice. This was around 74,000 miles, so 35,000 miles ago, exactly to the day 3 years ago. And there's the total, $2,800. Then they have to do an alignment, so over $3,000 for this issue. So I don't know, let's fire it up. When I first, steering it around the parking lot, it was binding up a bit. Now it seems to be normal. But let's jump in with the scanner, take a look at some data. It's electronic power steering, obviously, and see if there's anything weird. Like, what's the current, what's the supply voltage, temperature, steering wheel velocity. I don't know if there's a torque sensor right there, foot-pounds. And degrees per second. Let's try that. Let's see, it goes up to 50 amps, minus 50 amps. There's the torque. So this is great data. Let's take it for a test drive. Alright, so we drove about 10 miles. We're in a parking lot, and in the parking lot everything seems to be pretty normal. However, I noticed that when we were driving straight about 50 miles an hour and you try to make a correction, the steering wheel really fights you, and then eventually it'll turn or follow your instructions. What I noticed on the data was the torque sensor is definitely picking up the input. However, the current was not really responding until you went over like 2 foot-pounds, and then it would assist. So what does that tell you? This tells me that the problem has to be in the power steering control module, which is part of the steering rack. So what do you tell the customer? Replace the rack again? Or is there a programming update to fix this issue? Let's do some research online, see if there's any TSBs for hard steering effort or something like that, and then if a programming update fixes it, obviously that's a win. If not, they're going to need a new rack. Not many options here. We're not looking for wiring problems or mechanical problems, because in the parking lot everything's nice and smooth and easy. But once you're up to speed, the steering feel is definitely not good. Not as bad as I thought it would be based on the customer description, but not normal. You don't have, usually you don't have to fight the steering wheel to shift a lane on the highway. That's definitely not normal. So we'll keep driving here around the block and get back to the shop. So after about 10 more miles, nothing really changed. The idle, things seem perfectly fine. The motor current responds to the torque, and the torque does not exceed about 1.5 foot-pounds. So that's normal operation. At speed, like you said, when you're trying to correct a lane, torque goes up almost up to 2 foot-pounds, and the current reacts eventually and only gives a few amps. Now, obviously, at speed, you don't need as much assist current, but it should be more than 0. It should respond to the torque input. So, is this a software issue? That's still my question. Well, thanks to Google and YouTube, just Googled Ford Explorer hard to steer, and Ford Boss Me, this is a Ford technician expert, shows another possible cause for hard steering. This U-joint right above the steering rack gets rusty and starts to bind up. Now when the customer dropped it off, the symptoms were very indicative of a bad U-joint, because it was stiff and then easy, and then stiff and then easy. And once I exercised the wheel lock to lock a bunch of times, the problem seems to have gone away, but it could still be an issue. So what I'm going to do for now is spray that U-joint with WD-40, just soak it, and do the lock to lock back and forth, make sure that in the parking lot it's smooth. Then take it on one more test drive and see if the issue with steering from the center line is still there at speed. It doesn't really make sense that a U-joint would cause a speed-related problem like this, but if you spray down and the parking lot symptom that I experienced last time goes away, then that is part of the problem. So it still might need another rack, but this is a common issue where in the salt states this U-joint gets all rusty and bound up, and then you'll have a kind of a stiff free feeling as you turn the steering wheel around. So let's take a look. Alright, well there it is. It does look a little rusty. So what we're going to do is take a can of WD-40 and just spray the heck out of that thing. Hopefully aim it right onto where the U-joint is, and we'll see if that improves the situation at all. I doubt that it will on the highway, but you never know. It's definitely not the U-joint. This thing's almost hitting a wall. Only at speed, I'm fighting it. Like to make this curve right here, and then it kind of lets go and assists. But if we turn into a parking lot, no problems. This is after spraying that U-joint with WD-40. So basically, if that U-joint is bound up, the steering feel here would be identical to the steering feel at 40 miles per hour, at least in that little dead spot. But here, it's absolutely free. No problems at all. But as soon as we get some speed, let's get back on the road. Even right now, it's getting tougher. So not bad below 20 miles an hour. Okay, there we go. It's starting to fight me. Oh. Right there. Crazy. I would call this dangerous steering because it's really unpredictable if it's going to fight you or not. I think the more that motor and module warm up, the worse it gets, which is why it was pretty bad when the customer dropped it off after an hour and a half on the highway. All that stuff was hot. So no problems when you're pulling away from a stop sign. As soon as you go above 30 miles per hour, 40. Okay, it starts fighting you right there. It's almost like you have that much movement before it starts fighting you. Oh, right there. Now it's fighting me right in the middle. Definitely not a U-joint problem. Right there. I can bounce it off that stop. Then it kind of loosens up a little bit. Now it's fighting me to the left. Interesting, right? Alright, so we're stuck in this dead zone with pretty substantial resistance right there and right there. So if I increase the torque, guys, it might be the U-joint because I'm pushing this harder and the torque right there in the lower left is not increasing. If I get it past that spot, boom, it does increase, and then we can get through. Let's try to go the other way. 0.6. So the current is ramping up. It's really hard to pull it through. And then it lets go, and look at our torque. It actually increased now, and the assistance current is increasing. So there's nothing wrong with the rack. Thank goodness we waited and drove it around some more to make this problem more obvious. So I think as the shaft heated up, that U-joint kind of swelled up, and now it's really seizing up and becoming more obvious. So there's a tight spot right there, and then it's loose, and then a tight spot right there, and then it's loose, then a tight spot right there, and then it's loose. So if you keep turning the wheel, it'll loosen up. But if we drive it straight for a little while, that sucker binds right up, which is crazy. You wouldn't expect that from a U-joint. So I'm putting significant pressure down. Our torque sensor is reading almost 0 right there, 0. And we're pushing down, so it's definitely U-joint because the torque sensor is after U-joint in the steering rack. That's how you do this diagnosis. So thank you to Ford Boss Me for pointing us in the right direction. Customer already supplied the steering shaft because he thought that might be the problem. Maybe he Googled his own video. But he came here for a second opinion, and I'm in agreement that that steering shaft has to be changed out. So the customer provided us with a new lower steering shaft for this 2014 Ford Explorer. Here it is. There's that U-joint that is suspected stuck and seized. It goes through the firewall. Here's the upper joint. So step one is to take off a couple trim pieces here and bolt is off and the steering column just slides down. It's extendable, obviously, so you can push that down. And there's a clamp right there. Put some vice grips on it. This is a T40 bolt, pinch bolt. And then we'll go under the truck and undo that side. Alright, so under the Explorer, we have a safely supported jack stand and jack. And the pinch bolt is a 10mm that came out pretty friendly with an impact and an extension. And now what I'm doing is I'm just hammering a pry bar into the gap of the shaft, you know, pinch where the pinch bolt was, and it's actually wiggling off pretty nicely. It's being friendly. It's almost off all the way. You can probably do it by hand from here. There we go, it's off. Now we just have to push it through, put the new one in. Pretty easy job, unless you're really seized down here. So the proof is in the pudding. This U-joint side is good. This one completely locked up. So let's put in the new shaft, button her up, and take it for a test drive. Alright, there's our new shaft. There's only one way you can put it on. Spray some lubricant on that stub and then just slide it down. That's happy. Put the pinch bolt in. Good to go. Customer even provided an OEM pinch bolt, which is nice. And you can reuse this, but you know, better safe than sorry for steering components. Nice. Alright, so inside the truck, I just want to extend this up. And that's it. Put the new pinch bolt in here. There we go. And then this boot down here, you want to put it in the clamp. There it slides right in. Vice grip's undone. You can even turn this for easy access. Let's drive this sucker in. Here we go. Everything's aligned. Make sure steering wheel's straight. Wheels are straight. Alright, that's it. Let's take it for a test drive. Alright, obviously I can already feel a huge improvement here in the steering smoothness. Let's get it up to speed. Make sure at 50 miles an hour there's no glitches or smooth as butter. So the customer will be very happy. So he actually brought the steering shaft expecting that to be the problem. He might have seen another YouTube video. Apparently this is a common issue in the salt rust belt. That lower U-joint seizes up. It happens on other cars too, but you don't see it too often. But make sure you don't replace your steering shaft or your steering rack for $3,000 when you don't need to. That's I think the takeaway here. But pretty easy job. This one came off easier than expected. And again, nice smooth steering all around. That's it. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.